Welcome to South Korea.
Hi, I'm Muni.
And I'm Annette. We are a mother-daughter duo who are tackling the globe one country at a time.
Join us to see how we explore each city while traveling with my two boys under the age of 3. Join us this episode for how we wrangled 2 children under the age of 3 for almost 24 hours of flying to arrive in Seoul, South Korea. We'll also show you all of the highlights that we found on our tour of this magical city.
In order to get to South Korea, we flew for 24 long hours. You will see this in our upcoming video.
In order to get from the airport, ICN, to the city of Seoul, it takes about an hour plus depending upon traffic or whether you decide to take the train instead. So please, once you arrive and get through customs, go to the bathroom. You're going to need it. There were not any stops on the side of the road as you would see in America, like a pit stop or a travel center where you'd be able to get off of the highway and use the bathroom. And that's one of the first things I noticed after arriving in Seoul.
Our driver was definitely a little bit lost, and we went around and around in circles. But in it all, we were able to see lots of new parts of the city.
I chose this Hotel Le Meridien on Travelocity because I knew we would be exhausted when we arrived, and I wanted the guarantee of a nice soft bed, insulated walls, and a hot shower with great water pressure. And I can honestly say this hotel did not disappoint. The decor of the rooms was absolutely beautiful. It was perfect for Instagrammable moments. However, we were too tired for any of that.
When we entered the room, I thought that it was nice and spacious, and it was definitely clean. Of course, I'm going to look for those foul smells, but there was none. In the bathroom, there was marble floors and marble tiled walls. It was spacious. There was a tub that you can lounge in, which I'm not going to do ever. And there was a large shower. Of course, it had great water pressure. We stayed in the room that had 2 beds, and they were both very comfortable. Each room had their own water purifying system, so you can drink as much water as you wanted to, which is very unusual for most foreign countries. There were air purifiers in each of the rooms, which helped to make the quality of the air that you breathe much better.
All right, almost 24 hours of travel later, here we are in the beautiful hotel room. What are your first impressions about Korea?
Korea is very nice so far. The people seem nice, but I don't know. Everybody's orderly. They wait for the bus in line. They are walking down the street just orderly. Nobody's jaywalking.
True.
The traffic was not crazy, even though it was rush hour. And our driver was nice, even though we didn't understand what he was saying.
Yeah, definitely some lessons learned in patience here. Being the first time I've ever traveled somewhere I don't speak the language, it's a little bit overwhelming, but I think we'll get through. The room is beautiful. We made it okay. Everyone is healthy. What can we say? I'm excited to explore, to see what the city has to offer us. Something I realized real quick about Seoul is that if you don't speak Korean, you're going to have a hard time. The only time we attempted to use a public taxi is when we wanted to go meet up with my friends for dinner. There was no way to communicate with the taxi driver, and there was no way for him to communicate with us. There was also no way for us to know how much the taxi fare was going to cost and whether they would accept cash versus a card. Ultimately, everyone in Korea did have tap to pay, so that was a lifesaver.
We entered the restaurant and saw traditional decor, and were immediately seated at our table, which was near the front. We did not have to worry about what to order because our food was already pre-ordered, and it looked good.
This was our first time eating Korean food, and we were exposed to many new things such as kimchi, raw beef, seafood pancakes, their version of miso soup, as well as chicken dishes with spices that I could not even tell you what they were. Okay, Sarah, first bites. What is your impression?
Is it a miso soup? What kind of soup?
Miso soup. Just
Yeah, it's delicious. It has a little bit of a kimchi flavor, but without like the it's not like too strong.
Overall, it was a new, great experience.
All right, so first impressions of Korea. Food is spicy, got a little bit of a tummy ache, but overall pretty good. It's my first time trying Korean food. It's beautiful downtown. The streets were pretty clean for the most part. It felt a little bit like New York City in the sense that a lot of the buildings are a little bit older, and a lot of restaurants, you know, throw their garbage on like the side of the road, which I don't really like, but it doesn't seem like they have like the same kind of rat problem that New York City has. So I really like that. I felt very safe. Everybody, as my mom said already, was very orderly. Nobody was jaywalking. It wasn't chaotic. It felt like a very manageable city. In terms of the night's sleep, I felt like I slept pretty good until my son woke up at 3 o'clock because his internal clock is completely flipped. So after we were able to smother him back to sleep, everything turned out okay. But the beds are super comfortable. They're not the most comfortable that I've ever experienced, but they'll definitely get the job done. I don't think that other countries have a tendency to have such fluffy beds as we do. So I also keep that in mind. But the decor of the room is beautiful. It was nice to wake up to this slight city view. And now we're about to go get breakfast.
This hotel is part of the Marriott Bonvoy Group. Within the Bonvoy Group, there are some perks. You will pay a little bit extra for your reservation, but it entitles you to the club benefits. Within the club, you are able to have free breakfast, which includes all the meals and fixings that you can have, food and drink, snacks throughout the day.
We assumed that the breakfast in the morning would be at the restaurant in the lobby, so we made our way downstairs and were able to see all of the decor in daylight, and I can honestly tell you it was just as beautiful as it was at nighttime. I love all of the little details that the interior designers use, including mixing materials, mixing colors, as well as including a lot of metal in their design. I love this modern type of feel.
We initially went to the wrong restaurant. The staff there eventually told us that we were seated in the wrong place and we needed to go to the 15th floor to the club breakfast, which we did.
If we hadn't have changed course after the employee told us this, then we would have ended up having to pay for breakfast on top of the extra few dollars that we paid for the reservation. And thus we headed up to the 15th floor. As my mom said, this is a room where you would be able to, if you had paid a few extra dollars for your reservation, you would have been able to have access to all day hors d'oeuvres. You would have been able to get juices, sodas, snacks, water, as well as different rice dishes all day long. I really wish that we would have taken more advantage of this during the day because it could have saved us quite a bit of money and confusion about where we were going to eat during the day. It is not just for breakfast, people. We had views of the entire city from the 15th floor, and I could say my first impression of the cityscape is that it's really, really cramped and also quite gray, but I think that might just have to do with the season of the year that we visited. I ran straight to the tea and coffee station because I love a full body tea first thing in the morning. There was so much seating in the club that I felt that we had almost a private restaurant to ourselves.
The food in the restaurant was interesting. There was the standard American fare, which included some boiled eggs and some bacon, sausage, or you can eat a traditional Korean breakfast, which included rice and kimchi and chicken and other things that I would not be eating for breakfast.
What I've found on my travels is that most of the times other countries eat more savory things that fill you up for the day for breakfast, while in America we're used to eating sugary things and carb overload, such as pancakes, waffles, French toast, etc. The omelet station was perhaps my favorite part of breakfast. You know me, the bathroom police. I had to make sure, because my son had to go pee-pee, I had to make sure that the bathroom upstairs in the club was clean, and of course it did not disappoint. The decor inside the bathroom was beautiful. They had a heated toilet seat as well as bidet combined and beautiful fixtures for the sink. I absolutely love the stonework that was all around the bathroom. I think that whoever designed this hotel had a really great understanding of modern architecture and modern design. You already know that I had to go check out the business center just in case I got called into an emergency meeting, and the business center did not disappoint. It was beautifully designed as well with very comfortable furniture. Not that I'll ever use it. Next, we were on to the gym, which all of this was on the 15th floor. The gym was really cool. I loved the wallpaper that they used. It was a bit different, and it was a fully stocked gym. So you could have lifted weights, you could have run on the treadmill, and other people were doing so. We were more interested in the pool.
The locker room was very nice and clean and orderly. The walls were made of marble, and you could enter and find towels and slippers and shower stalls. In each shower stall, you press a button and the door closed automatically, and you could take a shower in privacy. There were ample slippers for you to use to go to the pool because it was required that you take a shower. Okay. It was required that you took a shower before entering the pool. The one interesting thing that stood out to me as something I'd never seen before was the fact that there was a lifeguard on duty in the hotel pool. Interesting, but good.
For our full day in Seoul, I was able to find on Viator.com a private van tour led by our new friend Sean. We had no expectations for our time in Korea. We were just going to see what happened and what the day brought to us. But he was very attentive and made sure we had a list of all of the prime locations to go visit. First on our list was to try on some traditional clothing called a hanbok, and then to go visit the palaces. Unfortunately, this was a Tuesday, so the main palace was closed, but we were still able to see a lesser palace there. That is something to keep in mind when you're planning which days to spend of your Asia trip in Seoul, South Korea.
We entered the handbook shop and there were dresses everywhere. There were regular dresses and premium dresses. We chose the premium dresses. There were attendants ready and waiting to help you with your selection. The hardest part was trying to decide which one, which color. There were so many. It was hard to choose. There were clothing there for children, for men, for women, and in all colors of the spectrum. As you know, my favorite color is green, so I chose a green one. And they proceeded to get us dressed. There was a shirt and there was a undercoat that had maybe a hoop, and the skirt. They were one size fit all, so everyone was able to comfortably fit into it. Once you were done, you getting dressed, you were able to choose the headpieces that you wanted. You can choose bows, or you can choose ribbon, or you can choose headbands. Either one would have been okay. The headbands also went along with a purse. I chose not to carry a purse because that was just something else to do. If you wanted to, you could have selected shoes, but again, I did not choose to do that because that was an extra step. All of the rentals turned out to be about $150 US.
After we were dressed in our finest, we were then able to head out to this lesser palace that was available since the main palace was closed on Tuesday. This brings us to our first pro tip for South Korea. If you were thinking about renting a car so that you could get around easier, please don't. It's not worth it. There are no street parking signs anywhere. It is very challenging to find parking garages, especially if you don't read Korean. And even our tour guide was explaining that it is almost impossible to find parking spaces for his van when he's doing his tours, so I don't recommend the headache. This particular parking garage was just a short walk away from the palace. We had to cross just one major street in order to get there. My first impression of the palace was, wow, this is really opulent. Whenever I see large historical fixtures as such, I am thankful that somebody along the way had the thought to preserve this amount of history for us to look at in the future. This building has probably seen so many different things, different leaders, different people from all over the world. And I always imagine what it would have been like to be in this palace during its heyday. Hi, Mama.
Hi.
How you doing?
All right.
We're at the palace.
Fancy dress for me. It's too fancy, but it's the right color.
That is true.
Changduckgung is a palatial complex that takes up about 110 acres of downtown Seoul. This is one of the 5 grand palaces built by the kings of the Joseon dynasty in 1405 and has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1997. It was an active home for the royal family until the 20th century. It is recognized for its harmonious integration with the natural landscape. It served as the primary royal residence for several kings of the dynasty. Now it is used primarily as a tourist destination and venue space for large celebrations and classes on South Korean culture.
The secret garden is located within this complex and is 78 acres of beautiful ponds, flowers, trees, and all kinds of beautiful things that the royal family would have wanted to lay eyes upon. The queen, or the empress, was not allowed to leave this complex ever. She would have spent her whole life within these walls. Therefore, her staff and her family tried to make sure that she had something beautiful to look at every day to help ease her mind from the responsibilities of being a royal. After returning our traditional clothing, we decided to head in the direction of the Hanok village. This is another checkpoint where we realized what the parking situation would be like. There are no parking spaces anywhere close to this village, and everywhere you have to get to is on foot. We waited in line for a full hour before we were able to get into the parking lot because there were no spots. Again, do not rent a car. It is not worth it. Very close to the traditional village, our tour guide showed us a few of the streets where they filmed the most popular K-drama series, and it was really cool to be in the place of some of the most popular scenes of all time in Korean film and movies. Of course, by this point, we were super hungry, so we made our way to the Michelin star Ginseng chicken soup restaurant.
This was my first trip to a Michelin star restaurant because you know I watch all the cooking shows. And truth be told, the broth for the soup was just alright. I wasn't all that impressed.
After finishing our soup, we were able to walk straight down the street towards the traditional village. The interesting thing about this Hanbok village is that people still live here. There were thousands and thousands and thousands of tourists walking through the streets of normal people's houses. At this point in time, the only people who can afford to live here are some of the descendants of the original families and multi-millionaires, because this is some of the most sought after real estate in the city.
After the village, we hopped into the car and headed towards a traditional tea house.
This tea house is what I was looking forward to most in Korea because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a huge tea head.
And I am not.
I was thinking that perhaps I could change her mind. If there was anywhere in the world where my mom would become a fan of tea, it was at a traditional Korean tea house. I don't know that we accomplished our goal. Alright, we're a few hours into the tour and now we're at a traditional tea house. You excited?
Yeah, as much as I don't like tea, I'm gonna try it.
You gotta do it.
I'm gonna try it. Tastes like tea.
Mine is delicious.
I'm not saying that it's bad, but I don't like tea traditional. It's drinkable.
It's easily the best tea I've ever had in my life. I'm not saying a lot. Hey Gigi, I heard you're on the hunt for something. What are you looking for? Gigi, what are you looking for?
My magnet.
If you tuned into our first 2 episodes, you would know that Gigi is on the hunt for a magnet every city that we go to together in order to give the gift to her loved ones. We accomplished this task at Insadong Street. Close by to this busy commercial center was the Jogaesa temple. I decided not to record there because people were praying and that would feel a little bit disrespectful. I wanted to respect their customs and their prayers. How are you feeling, Mother?
I'm good. It's been a day. But it's been a good day. My daughter wanted to do some crafts and buy souvenirs that she would remember forever by making something special. So we hopped back into the car and went to the market. This market was unbelievable. There were clothing stores, there was food vendors, there were live octopus eating people sitting at tables. It was a lot. You could find freeze-dried fish right next to the fabric or pots and pans. There was beef and pork and shrimp and fish and all kinds of food and chicken feet, things you've never seen before.
We're at the market. Interesting is a good word for it. They got a little bit of everything here.
You can get some food or some pajamas.
Or some bags from Jane. Our tour guide helped my sister find several clothing stores where she acquired once in a lifetime types of fabric, and he was also able to help her negotiate the prices with the merchants. If you pay for things in cash at this market, you will get a severe discount. So we're at the market. My sister is buying some fabric so that she can make our souvenirs. And it's a very nice gesture, but I am so tired. My back hurts. The babies are sleeping. It's a bunch of dead weight. So I'm really excited to be almost finished with this tour. We've seen so much of South Korea, or of the Seoul in general, but apparently we've only done the north side. So hopefully tomorrow we'll have time to do the south side.
After a long day walking through the market, I decided I didn't want to eat the live octopus. I wanted a sweet treat. We walked out of the market and found the dessert.
I'm getting sugar.
We deserve it.
My dessert treats included a pastry filled with custard cream that was so good it reminded me of my childhood. It's something very reminiscent of what my mom used to make. In addition to that, we had really good donuts. They were piping hot, just made fresh. So delicious. And then to top it all off, my favorite thing in the world, mangoes. I was able to get a mango drink and it was delicious.
For our next breakfast at the clubhouse, my mom and I decided to try the exotic juices that they had. And we started with broccoli juice, which actually was not half bad. After we were full of our savory breakfast, we had just a few short hours to explore the south side of the city. My sister was not quite finished with purchasing her materials for her crafting souvenirs, and we ended up finding a very famous knitting cafe called Banul. This was a short, I would say 20-something minute Uber ride away on the other side of the city. However, it was peak traffic. We had to go through downtown, around the universities and major hospital systems, so it ended up taking us closer to 45 minutes to get there.
The yarn store turned out to be quite interesting. There was yarn in every color. There are different projects on display that other crafters had made. If you needed any color strand of yarn, you could find it there. I thought it was very interesting how the little shop was beautifully decorated. It was nice and neat. And again, everything in there organized by color and by type of yarn. And you could buy all the paraphernalia that goes along with knitting or crocheting, including the needles and the space savers, etc.
On the second floor of Banul, there was the cutest little cafe where I had tried something called a crow waffle for the first time, and it was delicious. Also, whenever you get me in front of some Martinelli's apple juice, you know it's going to be a great time. I actually was able to try the sparkling version of this for the first time, and it was delicious. We hopped back into our Uber, headed back to the hotel, and scurried off to the airport for our next destination, Tokyo, Japan. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in Japan.